Do you think if we stop mobile mining, which is the reward system, it would be good for Electroneum's price?
Enjoy the show. You just never know which way you'll go. So get ready for Digitspin crypto.
I'm going to read word for word because I want to make sure I don't add or subtract anything. And it says here, Richard goes, I think if we radically reduce inflation, which is how many coins get tossed out into the environment, how many coins are emitted. Right now there's two ways coins are emitted. The NGOs are permissioned validating nodes, and they're allowed to mine to keep the network running. Their computers or their assigned hardware is running, and it's functioning, and it's doing all of the it's keeping track of the ledger and doing all of the validations for the environment. It keeps an eye on each other, make sure nobody gets in there and tries to attack the environment. If it does, it locks that person out. And so it keeps it very secure. All right. The second way was through the mobile miner, or the app. And it was called the mobile miner for the longest time. They went to a reward system. And that was recently. And I find it very interesting that this comment would come out so soon after changing it to a reward system. So there's obviously something that it would appear to me something popped up very big or meaningful that allowed Richard to think in the direction of this and to really review all these coins that are being emitted. Is it really in the best interest of Electroneum? So he says again, if we radically reduce the inflation, it would probably have an effect on the price. If we talk hypothetically about any token or coin that has been widely distributed in huge numbers, you will get to know about the inflation. So, a bit more like the Zimbabwe's of the world, if you print more money, you ultimately will reduce the value of that money. So yes, is the answer. I think if there would be no mobile mining, no reward system, it would be great for Electroneum's price. Now, that's a interesting question to come out of left field. Very forward thinking. I congratulate CoinGuyan for asking this question. Because even if it was in the back of my head, I'm not sure I would have asked it, because with the thought of it just being changed to a reward, I would not have expected this answer. So this took me by surprise in the grand scheme of things. I think if we radically reduce the inflation. So this tells me that Richard's obviously been looking at this. Probably the team has been looking at this. And so, yes, the answer is, I think if there's no mobile mining, it would be great for Electroneum. So if there's no reward system being tossed out there, you reduce the inflation of coins that are transmitted, therefore making them more rare, and therefore the price goes up. I think that it's possible, reason number 5, that this sentence could have been buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. I think that if this was in thought and it's been evaluated, and he clearly thinks that if there was no rewards, it would be great for Electroneum's price. I don't know when this interview was created. or actually was done. So I don't know if it was a couple months ago, if it was 2 weeks ago. So that is very interesting to me, and I think that it's a possibility that those that really like Electroneum would be very excited, or people that really collect Electroneum would be really excited if the rewards were to go away. Maybe those coins can be used in different ways. I don't know, maybe when you go to open and put your coin on an exchange, 2 years ago it was really easy to get on an exchange. These days it's not that easy, so you have to have a legal opinion paper whether or not your coin is functional enough. See, they said Ethereum is not a security because it's so functional. It's clearly fuel for the Ethereum environment, and Ethereum actually does stuff. And I think Electroneum could prove that point also. So I think that that's going to be important for them when they get that legal paper. Now, besides the legal paper, they want to put money into Escrow. So there could be 500 million coins required, or to be put into Escrow in case of any bizarre things that should happen. There are coins there to protect the exchange and to be able to pay off any debt that is created, or something that happens to the network or what have you. So they want an escrow, and I've seen it between 500 and 700 million coins, that these things. So maybe maybe those coins can be well served by putting them into escrow. It locks them up. At the same time, checks a box that's required to get on a serious exchange. I don't know. I have a lot of other ideas that could be used for these coins, and I will present those as we go along in future videos. Now I don't think it's the time, but it's my personal opinion. With something like this, you would expect that it could affect the price and ultimately be more useful, basically speeding up the timeline. Here's the problem. Electroneum is a victim of their own success. When most of these coins, years ago, when the coins would come out, everything was in its infancy. Everybody was taking baby steps and making things as they go along. And the coin would mature during this process where the emissions curves would go down low enough. So by the time they actually created things and things started happening, look at Ethereum, 5 years, the emissions, and then they've brought it down even further. And they have functionality, and now people want it because you can do stuff with it now. There's very few that are put into the environment. The stock to flow is very low, and therefore the price can go up. In a nice, you can see a nice benefit from the price. So, Electroneum, in the grand scheme of things, in 2 years created some fantastic stuff, and they're ahead of the emission curve. So they've got all this great stuff that it could do. You can earn it, you can save it, you can transfer it. You got instant payment. It interacts with banks and countries and businesses. It's electricity friendly. It's 51% severely attack resistant. They've built all this great stuff, but the emission curve is still way up there. So it's pouring out these coins, and even though there's all this great stuff, the market's still flooding coins out. So they got ahead of the emission curve. And so there's a couple things that have to be done. In my opinion, eventually, I think they have to lower rewards further for the approved validation nodes. I think we'll probably have to get the emissions dropped even further. I know they dropped it 75%, and at the time I kept saying it's not enough, because you went from tens of thousands of people mining it to maybe a dozen or two people mining it, and yeah, it's good, it's going to NGOs that can do something with it, but it's still a significant amount of coins being tossed out there. They have to push down that emission curve to where it is to the product that they've produced, which would have been 4 or 5 years out. So they've got to kind of take a look at the emission curve and see where would it have been around 4 or 5 years later, and that's where they need to reset it now. Because they got the solution, but because it's still pouring out coins, price ain't going anywhere. And I've been saying this for about 6 months, 9 months. They're a victim of their own success in regards to the emissions. It appears, and because here's the thing with Electroneum, they get a double whammy. Not only are they pumping out the emissions from the blockchain, but they were pumping out emissions with all of the rewards at the same time. So it was twice as much as it should have been. This, I think, is actually it's unfortunate, but it's actually a good thing to have happen. We got to get the emissions, new coin production, the stock to flow has got to come down so that it meets the maturity of what they've built. Otherwise, they've built all this good stuff so fast, the emission curve is just going to keep pouring out. The price is going to just sit down and sit in the gutter because there's just too many coins being produced. And it'll be years out, because normally it's 4 or 5 years for everybody to mature and actually make something that works. That they would have to wait it out. And in crypto, anything can happen. So fix that. Get the emissions from the validation nodes down. Get the rewards. Close it up. Not saying that that's what they're doing. I don't know. But I have a feeling there are people that are thinking that. I have a feeling people are thinking that that's the direction Electroneum's going, and they're buying in now while they can at these 5 for a penny prices. Well, now it's 2 for a penny. Last week it was 5 for a penny. This week it's 2 for a penny, and maybe in a month or two it's 1 for a penny.